Well, it's happened again. Another public school kid kills himself as a consequence of COVID shutdowns. But the principal, rather than being empathetic, decides to lecture the family about policies and procedures. We've uncovered yet another symptom of COVID hysteria, anti-empathy CYA disorder. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start in Maine, where another student has committed suicide due to COVID school lockdowns, despite mounting evidence and testimony by the CDC and Dr. Anthony Fauci that schools should be open. And Fauci's shaky credibility aside, this is the toll that's being taken. For every kid who does this in a public manner, for every kid who does it on a Zoom meeting or does it and points to his reasons for doing it, there are dozens of kids who kill themselves who don't mention what this lockdown is doing to them. It's not just our elderly that are suffering, that are having sick people jammed into their nursing homes so they die in isolation. It's our youth, too, who are suffering immensely from this. And to me, the lie of the progressives, the lie of our governments on this about how we believe in science, we're the progressives, we believe in science and research and data. Well, all the science, research and data says there's no reason kids shouldn't be in schools. Yet now, because that goes against what you want, progressives, now you're suddenly anti-science.
So the boy's name is Spencer Smith. He was 16 years old, and he was a sophomore at Brunswick High School. And again, he lived in Maine. And I guess his parents have noticed he's become despondent over the isolation. He had dreams of wanting to be on the football team. He wanted to be a lineman. His parents said he was an outgoing kid. And then everything basically with COVID stopped all of that. And they said that he even had kind of said he felt increasingly isolated because of all this distance learning that's happening. Think of your own personal situation and over all these months. We're not even talking days, weeks. We're talking months, almost a year. We're getting closer to a year than anything else of being locked up, cooped up, all by yourself. Now try to be a teenager at that point and you have these hopes and dreams of you just wanted to play football. He just wanted to go out and be with his friends, interact one-on-one with people. And that's where the toll really was taken with what happened.
Spencer died by suicide 2 days ago. And his parents want other families to know this pandemic is taking its toll on teens.
I'm talking to you about all teenagers and the way they feel.
All summer long, Spencer's dad, Jay, said Spencer trained and worked out to bulk up for the football season. But as a lineman, when he found out the season would be flag football, he knew he wouldn't be playing.
As soon as he found out it wasn't going to be a regular football season, looking back, now we realize he stopped working out.
Distance learning was a challenge for Spencer, and the one day a week he could go into school, he still felt isolated from his friends, so he asked to stay home. Jay wants kids to be in the classroom again among their peers, something he wishes Spencer could have had.
The social distance ain't working for the kids. The kids are having it hard.
Yeah, you know the real problem here, and it's pathetic to have to point that out. The last two major stories we've done about this have been white males. And they just don't count. You can see that they don't count because nobody else cares about this. If this were a young black kid or heaven help us, a young black woman young black female student who literally shot herself in a Zoom meeting, or this was a profile of an up and coming young black athlete who had so much to look forward to with a college scholarship, this would be a much bigger story than it is now. Because when it happens to these kind of kids, not only is there no empathy on the part of the schools, there's an underlying current of, oh, well, get over it. If you look at how the superintendent of this school handled the suicide, I think you get a sense of what I'm talking about.
So here's a statement from Philip Potenziano, who's the superintendent of the Brunswick School Department, the statement that was issued. I want to take this opportunity to remind our community that suicide, when it does occur, is a very complicated act. No one single thing causes it, but in many cases, a mental health condition is part of it, and these conditions are treatable. It's really important if you or your child is not feeling well in any way to reach out for help. Suicide should not be an option. I am including some information that may be helpful to you in discussing suicide with your child.
What does that mean, suicide should not be an option? It's a stupid platitude. And you know what I haven't heard yet? any empathy. How about the second paragraph?
There we go. Furthermore, a student's death is a difficult and challenging situation that can generate a high level of anxiety and distress for some students. If you feel that your children are having difficulty, we encourage you to discuss their thoughts and feelings to help them through their grief or concerns. Please also consider monitoring and discussing your children's communications, social media, phone, emails, text messages, to further assess their potential needs.
We, the public schools, who have a right to interfere in every other aspect of your kid's life, will not interfere with his suicide, basically. Is that what they're telling us? That's on you, Mom and Dad. We're doing everything we're supposed to be doing the right way. Boy, if I got a note, if my kid killed himself in these circumstances and I got a note like that, we'd be having a face-to-face, Mr. Superintendent.
All right, we're going to head from Maine all across the country to San Diego in California, where San Diego schools, they're a bunch of racists, clearly. So the teachers all need to be taught about how you are racist if you're white, and, we need to just program you more. So all the white teachers are racist, they're claiming, and they need to be put through this racism training. And City Journal's Christopher Rufo was the first to post about all of this training, and he took to Twitter and used social media like screenshots showing leaked documents from the district of this training they had to go through. In his post, he wrote, "Scoop. San Diego Unified School District is forcing teachers to attend white privilege training in which teachers are told you are racist and you are upholding racist ideas, structures, and policies. The leaked documents from the training session will shock you." And he wrote, the training begins, so this is how they started it, with a land acknowledgement in which the teachers are asked to accept that they are colonizers living on stolen Native American land. Then they're told they will experience guilt, anger, apathy, and closed-mindedness because of their white fragility. And the acknowledgement then, because, they have to acknowledge this, says, "We acknowledge that we meet on stolen land taken from indigenous peoples."
There's no way you would get me to take this for any job. And not only, on so many levels is this wrong. It's not saying it's bad enough to say that because of the color of your skin, you participate in white hierarchies of privilege, but to basically tell them you have to acknowledge that you're a racist.
You specifically, teacher in front of me. It's right there.
There is no way in the world I would sign on to that. And then the fact that how Orwellian and totalitarian is this? It's not only are you going to do this, you're going to admit that everything you have is stolen, that everything you have you didn't earn, that everything about you is racist. Not only going to admit that, but on the other side of this, coming out of this, we're telling you how you're going to feel. You're not going to like it. You're not going to believe this about yourself. You're going to try to excuse yourself from this, and that's going to be because that proves you're a racist. Your white fragility. Attack you on the very core of your being. Make racist statements about you without evidence that you have to swear to keep your job. And when you get upset about it, that's proof that we're doing the right thing with you.
Yeah, and just these trainings, and I'm sure there's going to be many more of them, if you have any sort of armor on, they're just doing the little chinks in the armor to get you, oh, okay, fine, I'll just say it this way, we acknowledge that we meet on stolen land. Like, they could, at first, not believe it, but little by little, they will get you to believe that you, in fact, are racist, no matter what. And in the norms and agreements slide of this presentation, the teachers are told, share the airspace and leave space. Air take space and air leave space. You're supposed to share that. What that actually truly means, I don't know. But the norms and agreements, they need to be brave, speak your truth, and listen to others' truth.
But that's a lie. You can't. If my truth is piss off, I'm not a racist, they're not going to let me be brave. They're not going to let me get away with this, are they? That truth is anti-truth. That truth is racism. You will boldly speak our truth, Kimosabi, and nobody else.
I think you just took a lot of that airspace, and now you're not leaving airspace.
See, I toxified the air.
You just did.
I toxified the air with my truth. You just told me I could speak my truth.
Yes, but you also need to be mindful and fully present. Are you being mindful?
I'm fully present. A great big F you in my full presentness.
That's not full.
But I'm not mindful.
Yeah.
I'm also not. By getting angry, I didn't see that. I'm engaging in white fragility, which proves that I'm a white racist. Right?
You should expect to experience discomfort.
Yeah. And for that, meanwhile, in my classrooms, if any little twit student is uncomfortable for any reason, it's a course on Shakespeare, and Dr. Pesta never once mentioned the LGBTQ alliance. I'm uncomfortable. That's cause for newspaper articles.
Okay, well, you also need to allow others to learn what you know.
What
So
is
make
that
sure
that I
you
know?
do-
That I'm not a racist?
Well, you know what? I all I can say is take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, as it says. Take care of
You
yourself.
should be explicit about race and racism. Avoid and point out such coded language. I hope you understand and see how clearly they're telling you to do things that they've already told you under no circumstances you will do. You are a racist. You acknowledge that you're a racist. And yet you have to speak. You have to speak your truth, unless your truth contradicts us in any way, at which point your truth is racist. This is that kind of Soviet-style confession you would sign.
And if you're confused at all about, white fragility and what that may mean, they have a slide explaining that too, where white fragility, guilt, anger, apathy, frustration, closed-mindedness, defensiveness. You turn race into the R word. And of course, if they're going to have something about white fragility, they're going to put a quote from their one and only God, little g, Robin DiAngelo. It's a powerful means of white racial control and the protection of white advantage.
So daring to challenge them proves the case. Imagine this in a court of law.
Yeah.
We
still have those?
Welcome, Judge Katie Petrick, to the room.
Ooh.
Now, before we begin, we
Like
have to
Judge
tell
Judy.
you are accused of being a bank robber. You are guilty because you are white. You are a bank robber. You must acknowledge that
There we
you
go.
robbed this bank at this particular time. You will have the right to speak your truth, but if your truth in this court of law challenges that you're a bank robber, if you dare to defend yourself, you are guilty and fragile. In the words of Robin DiAngelo, your denial is the absolute proof we needed to find you guilty. If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't defend yourself. You wouldn't be upset. You wouldn't be angry. But you are upset. And you know where we saw an example of this? Christine Blasey Ford. Remember her? She got up there and had weird memories, couldn't put names to faces from 30 years ago, but she was convinced Brett Kavanaugh did this to her, and everybody was talking, what's Kavanaugh going to do? She's gone after him. They thought his career was over. What he did is he sat there and he got angry, remember? He got angry and he denied it, and he had some tears, and he was adamant about how he didn't do this, and that actually turned the opinion of many people in his favor. And what would Robin DiAngelo be saying about this? Everything Kavanaugh did to defend himself from her 30-year-old slurs would be proof of his guilt. And a lot of feminists said that, right? Alyssa Milano, that empty suit, sat right behind him in the courtroom and said, "I believe all women," right?
Yeah.
And so the more passionately he defended himself, according to the feminists, the more guilty he is. And now you're doing the same garbage with these mandatory racial trainings.
It does make you wonder if maybe some college students, especially those who are college students and their parents are celebrities and maybe pay for them to get into college, if maybe they were sitting in one of these DiAngelo talks and learning about their privilege. Because we actually have one of said daughters. In this case, it's Lori Loughlin's daughter. Remember Lori Loughlin, Aunt Becky of Full House? Well, the story goes, months ago now, she paid for both of her, well, her and her husband paid, bribed, whatever, for both of her college-age girls to get into college because that they couldn't get in on their own, I guess. So basically, it was this huge college admissions scandal that happened. Other celebrities were indicted and talked about and all that. But Aunt Becky was one who actually ended up in a little bit of jail time, just a couple months, but her husband got a couple more. Anyway, what's happening now is the one daughter is coming out and saying, you know what, it was my privilege. It blinded me.
Well, this is the same young woman. Throw that picture up there. That picture tells you everything you need to know. So the young girl was a social media influencer, right?
Olivia Jade, yep.
Olivia Jade, even with a name like that. And she was, mom was doing this on her behalf. Mom was getting her into college on false credentials and forwarding. She was going to end up getting a college degree without ever attending college. So she could just add it to her list of accomplishments. Typical Hollywood leftist, all the long list of things that they pretend to have accomplished. And so, but she was a real snot. When this hit the fan and her mom was going to jail possibly and her dad, she was all about herself. She was a typical little Hollywood Hills brat. Now she's figured something out. What's the one way and the only way a white person goes from being a bigot to a hero? What's the only way as a white person you can survive cancel culture? It is to
Admit your white privilege guilt.
To embrace it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, spoiled brat, who did this. It wasn't low character Olivia Jade. It wasn't spoiled, narcissistic, self-involved Olivia Jade. It was the white privilege that was handed to me when I was born that did it. See, it is a wonderful thing for liberal. Universities are full of these kind of liberals. The minute you embrace that, right, you can say all of that was the response of my white heritage, but I put it aside now. I'm actually more black than you.
Yeah.
I'm more sensitive now than
But to get the most credit on this whole hierarchy list, you have to do it in the most public way,
And
it has to grovel to someone who is black or something else. So she went on Jada Pinkett Smith's
there you go.
podcast. It's called Red Table Talk, and
Is this Jada of the sex-obsessed, Jada nymphomania Pinkett?
well, it's Will Smith's wife.
Right.
She's been in the
news for her irresistible inability to stop having sex with anybody who moves.
I don't read the tabloids.
I don't
so
either.
I don't,
But
well,
I do.
apparently you know that. I just know she's married to Will Smith. And I guess one of the kids or a couple of their kids was on this Red Table Talk. They get around and talk about all the details of their life. Well, Olivia went on this Red Table Talk and she said she now wants redemption. She claims to now fully understand the hurt her parents' actions caused. She said, "It's been hard, I think, for anybody. No matter what the situation is, you don't want to see your parents go to prison." Okay. For you.
Let's
okay.
be clear,
anyway.
Olivia.
But I think it's necessary for us to move on and move forward.
Of course it is.
Okay. And then she gets to the part about, okay, it's my white privilege. She says, "I understand that just based on my skin color, I already had my foot in the door and I was already ahead of everybody else." Right? I think that 100%. I can recognize that going forward. Okay. Tea time out.
Yes,
Tea time out.
The hypocrisy of that statement.
I understand that just based on my skin color. I understand that based on my parents and their
Money.
wealth
Yep.
and their fame and their glory, that I had a foot in the door to anywhere.
And you know who else that applies to? Will Smith's kids.
Oh, yeah, of course, all of them. Oh,
Yep.
yeah, those kids for sure.
They were born
All of
with
them.
one foot in any place they wanted to go because their daddy was Will Smith and their mother was also rich.
Yeah.
Two rich Hollywood stars. They're every bit as much privilege for young Jaden Smith as there was for Olivia Jade.
Wow.
Maybe you get Olivia Jade and Jaden Smith together and have the perfect little social justice baby.
The fact that you even know this, you're so hip hop. Well, now that Olivia Jade is 21, she says she should get a second chance.
Yes.
She said, "I just want to make it very clear. I'm very aware there are big problems going on in the world that are outside my bubble." I like that she used the term bubble. She at least understands that she lives in a bubble. But how much better of a person would you be if you used your blessings to help somebody else?
And how are you going to do that, Olivia Jade?
Donate all her makeup and stuff. Did you say she does makeup or like
She's a
skincare
social
or something?
influencer, I don't know.
Social influencer. Go influence the world.
Instead
Olivia,
of flying off to Cabo San Lucas and get comp for everything because she does videos about how wonderful it is, maybe they'll send her to inner city Haiti, make her pay her own way, and talk about how. So somehow I don't think that's what Olivia Jade has in mind. Do you?
No.
No, I don't either.
It's time for some real education. Toulouse-Lautrec was a French painter, printmaker, and illustrator whose immersion in the colorful and theatrical life of Paris in the late 19th century allowed him to produce elegant and provocative images of the decadent scenes of those times. His parents were first cousins, and many of his congenital health conditions were attributed to a family history of inbreeding.
As a young boy, he broke his bones, and at that both of his femurs and his legs. And at that point, they stopped growing. So his legs below the waist never stopped being children's legs, while the top part of him kept growing to normal size. So he's kind of a really interesting, odd little fella there. Of all the painters of this age, he was the one that overcame the most physical difficulty. His real name, his actual full name is Henri Marie Ramon de Toulouse-Lautrec Montfort, and that's a whole complicated thing. He's one of those painters that's good enough a painter to be known simply as Toulouse-Lautrec, his last name. And take a look at the picture we chose for today. This is La Toilette, right? It's a woman's time in the bathroom. And there's something really, really interesting about this picture. You never see her face. She's turned to you. It's a very erotic image, especially in the time of Victorian England. It's an incredibly erotic image. She is stripped down to basically her underclothes. You could see her stockings pulled down on the right leg just to the knee. And you can see it's a very intimate moment, a moment where she doesn't even realize she's being watched, which makes it almost definitely a voyeuristic painting as well. This painting, La Toilette, also known as Russe, depicts a domestic scene of a woman sitting on a plain towel or sheet over a dark rug on a bare floorboard. She is largely undressed with bare back, arms and head, hair tied back, and bare right thigh tantalizingly visible. A swath of plain fabric is wrapped around her waist with a black boot or stocking on her right lower leg. Other clothing is draped over a chair to the left. The work was painted in oils on cardboard and employs a light color palette, predominantly blues with yellowish greens and red for the woman's hair, which stands out incredibly in the picture, I might add, thinned with turpentine to create a loose effect. This post-impressionist image, similar to a work in pastels or a sketch, very much like the Dancing Girls, by the way, of Degas. You think about those great impressionist images of dancers from Degas and all those beautiful pastels. It was a similar situation where you had probing eyes watching these very intimate warm-ups or ballet routines or stretches that Degas gave us, these delicately, beautifully lined females. You see it again here if you go back into Toulouse-Lautrec. She's got the body, certainly of a dancer. Maybe she's a show woman, part of the can-can, the illustrious can-can, if it's not too early for this in French culture yet. And you can see the intimacy of her toilette, her bathroom, right? Everything is kind of scattered around. It gives you a sense of voyeuristic closeness to someone. And there is something, charged about the fact, sexually charged about the fact that as you watch her, she does not know she's being watched, which leads her to perhaps greater intimacy in the picture than she would be displaying if she knew she had people watching her.
All right, before we go, just a reminder that the best way to keep up with us in our various shows here at Freedom Project is to follow us on Parler. So take a whopping 10, 12, 14 seconds today and follow at Duke Pesta, at Katie, and at Freedom Project. And if you're a fan of this show, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support the Patriot Club. And we're going to send you an awesome tumbler. It's just a little tiny wee little thing of a thank you. So to sign up, all you have to do is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Now, we're going to wrap things up with the fun fact of the day. Like the fakeness that is Lori Loughlin, Full House, the show she was on, had a lot of fakeness going on. The show was supposed to be in San Francisco, but actually only one episode of the show out of all the seasons was actually filmed in San Francisco, and it was the 8th season's premiere episode called Comet's Excellent Adventure. That's their dog. Anyway, aside from 3 other episodes that were filmed on location in Hawaii, Walt Disney World, all episodes were actually filmed on the Warner Brothers lot in L.A.
Don't say it. Fake backgrounds for fake people leading fake lives. And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.